People haven't been talking politics lately. The only people I see on television is Donald Trump at a certain time. I see Andrew Cuomo at a certain time. And I see Mayor de Blasio at a certain time. And, who's that? What happened to that guy Biden? I don't see him at all.
He's just disappeared. Trump and Cuomo have literally sucked up all the oxygen in the room. It's so interesting to see the disappearance of Joe Biden and, frankly, the disappearance of the Democratic candidates for president. Nobody pays attention to Bernie Sanders, and few more pay attention to Biden. I think that so far, this crisis is working out as an amazing boost to Donald Trump's electability. Because I think people see a new Donald Trump emerging as he meets this crisis and as he handles it. A different Donald Trump. And as he successfully pushes efforts to get containment and get stuff throughout the country, and he doesn't act like Trump usually does. He doesn't take shots at people. He doesn't set up polarizing debates. He doesn't hog the stage. He listens to his experts clearly. And I think the more that happens, the better he's doing. I think that people, between how he handles impeachment and how he's handling this virus, people are seeing a Donald Trump they've not seen before. And frankly, I'm not sure there's been this Donald Trump before. I know when I worked for Bill Clinton, it was so interesting to observe how the presidency forces people to grow. And I believe Trump has grown new abilities and new talents and, frankly, new wisdom. And I think that the result is a big change in the way the voters view him. Not only is his job approval an unbelievable record high for him, but his handling of the coronavirus rating is even higher. And I think that what's happening is that first people sit there and they say, I agree with the steps he's taking. Then they say, he's doing a pretty good job of handling the virus. And then they say, he's not a bad president. And then they say, yeah, well, maybe I'll actually vote for him. And I think the four-part process is going on right now. And if the virus follows the trajectory that they're talking about, which is the worst-case disaster scenarios of 10 million dead, turn out not to be the case. And there's unfortunately deaths. We hate every one of them, but they might be in the 5,000 to 10,000 range nationally. And the virus might run its course and begin to peak and begin to fade in May, as he said. And the country gradually reopens and the economy is bouncing back, which I think it will. Once those ankle bracelets are off and we're allowed to go outside, we're going to go shopping. And I think that will all combine and may produce one of the biggest presidential victories in modern times.
Well, I tend to agree with you. If you mention the top presidents me and you grew up with, because me and you are about the same age. Reagan was a great president. He's going down in history, and Bill Clinton was a great president, in my opinion. And now Trump has moved into that category where he's had the courage, and not every president has the courage to challenge China, to shut down China, and to challenge Europe and shut down Europe, which I think will go down in history that he saved millions of lives in the United States.
Yeah, I think they're absolutely right. When I used to talk to Bill Clinton about when he was president about whether he would be a great president or not, I said that I felt that to be a great president, you have to do something very significant. And he said, like win a war. And I said, yeah. And he said, well, I don't have any wars to win. And Donald Trump has a war to win, and I think he's doing a good job of it.
By the way, some people start wars so they can win them.
Yeah, that's right. But he didn't start this war. China did. But I think that it's important for us to realize that it's not just a question of we're learning stuff about Trump. There's a new Trump being born in front of us, a new person with new idea, with a new approach to life and a new approach to handling his job. And I think people all over the country are recognizing that. And it's causing, and I see that as a pollster in increasing his ratings. When you say, I've been surprised to see Donald Trump be as effective as he is. Or people say, I feel like I'm watching a new Donald Trump. And I think you get a lot of that. And I think that particularly among swing voters, it's going to have a big impact.
I agree. Now, let's go back to Joe Biden. I mean, I always liked Joe Biden. He was a nice old guy, but lately he's not been up to par. Is there any way that Andrew Cuomo could overtake him?
Well, only if he steps aside voluntarily. There's no way that AT&T can be defeated at the convention. In fact, legally, the delegates who've been selected are bound to him and have to vote for him as long as he wants them to vote for him. So if were he to pull out, it would have to be by the pressure of the party, by the pressure of public opinion and the media. But get realistic. This guy's been running for president since he was born, and this is his third try, and he's not going to pull out. He finally has the nomination. He's going to get it. He's going to run. And he's going to go down in history as one of history's biggest losers. I'm kind of interested, as I watched Andrew Cuomo come out really aggressively and condemn Chuck Schumer's, condemn the agreement that Congress is about to pass. I'm interested in seeing how explicit Cuomo has been in condemning that package, and he doesn't mention Schumer's name, but he says, I spoke to our senators and our congressmen, and I think they were reckless and irresponsible. It's a phrase he used. Well, he's obviously talking about the Senate Minority Leader, the Democrat floor leader, the senator from New York, Chuck Schumer. And I think that may presage a new political division in New York between Cuomo and Schumer. If Schumer were up for election this year, I think Cuomo might even get a guy to run in the primary against him. But I think there's bad blood there.
Well, I was disappointed in Chuck Schumer, who I consider a friend for 30 years, that he didn't stand up more for New York State. He stood up for the Democratic Party, but you can't forget that he is the New York State senator, and that he must remember.
Remember, he was the guy who went to Bush right after 9/11 and said, Mr. President, New York needs $20 billion in an Oval Office meeting. And Bush said, you got it. And that was the beginning of the recovery of New York City. And he didn't do as well this time around. And it's amazing to see the Democratic governor of the state condemning the Democratic floor leader in the Senate from the state and doing so in such aggressive and public terms. And then at the end he said, after this is over, I give him a piece of my mind.
Well, Dick Morris, I agree with you, and thank you for coming on this Sunday morning and reflecting that to all Americans. And let's catch up again real soon. Thank you.
Bye-bye.